one big WrestleMania match that I imagine a lot of people were looking forward to, myself included, specifically for the merchandise, because I think we're supposed to get a WrestleMania 8 mock-up with KO Mania, but we won't be getting KO Mania 8. We'll have to wait until next year to get that mock-up shirt, as Kevin Owens will need neck surgery, not storyline, and he will not be competing against Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And as of right now, Randy Orton does not have another opponent. And I just want to briefly kind of talk about, obviously, this being a marquee matchup, now not happening. Do you think, and I understand we're not changing up major things or anything like that, and I know WWE loves this two-night WrestleMania, but do you think, obviously, with all they've put into this year's WrestleMania when it comes to ticket sales and promotion more than ever before, do things like this, major matches getting canceled just 2 weeks from the show, give them somewhat of a pause, at least, on the idea of booking 2 days of WrestleMania?
No, because there's enough content. I mean, we're losing a great match. I mean, we're losing, obviously, we wish Kevin Owens the best. That's first and foremost. Unfortunate timing for him. He's going to be out. I'm seeing some very, very wide ranges, but it sounds like he's not going to be around for the foreseeable future, so I don't want to speculate on a timeline. I'll just be excited to see him come back when he does come back. I just hope it doesn't take as long as Randy Orton's did, because Randy Orton was gone for a year and a half. So, I've seen a lot of different timelines out there for Kevin, and I just hope it's the early end of it, not the latter end of it, so to speak. And also, it's Randy Orton losing that match. Randy Orton, people you just mentioned, a lot of people are going to WrestleMania for different reasons, and Randy Orton's probably on the top of a lot of people's list because Randy Orton is a freaking legend, and anytime you get to see Randy Orton in any match, it's cool. So you're losing two marquee names and one marquee match, but there's so many marquee matches right now. It's not like it's, WrestleMania from a few years ago where, let's be honest, there wasn't a lot of great matches. There, it just was what it was. WWE's in a really good place right now where it sucks that this is happening for both Kevin Owens for the injury and Randy Orton obviously not being, at this point, not able to compete because of this at WrestleMania. But there's so much content. There's so much to go around. I'm not too concerned about it at all. What say you on that?
I'm concerned because you talk about obviously marquee matches. I think there's a handful of matches that have stories behind them, kind of thing, heading into WrestleMania. Obviously, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton from Elimination Chamber is one of those matches. But I will say that, a good example of something I feel like, is going to take its place, and this is the problem. See, I understand the show probably lengthwise won't suffer if you're talking about length. But, it's difficult to wonder, was Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano always going to be on this card? And is that a part of, is it a match that's there because of what we have with obviously the loss of Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, and that is not an equal. And with WrestleMania being WrestleMania, right, being marquee match after marquee match, I just feel like there are a few matches that have been thrown in as of late to just fill out the card that don't necessarily have the stories that are strong. We're talking the 4-way for the IC title where, is that just going to be kind of a Judgment Day implosion idea? I mean, I don't think it's not going to be a good match. It probably will, but is that a WrestleMania match that we've been thinking about for months? No. Another match, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. Is that a WrestleMania match? I mean, Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman have been tearing it down the last couple of months.
Yes.
LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu, not saying that won't be entertaining, but I probably won't be nearly as entertaining as how Jacob Fatu got to face the U.S. champion in, his matches against Braun Strowman, which I think is more WrestleMania caliber in that regards. But I also obviously think about the idea.
Wait, you don't think LA Knight and Jacob Fatu is WrestleMania caliber?
I think Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu have literally been tearing the house down against each other in these beast versus beast matchups. And, just for them to essentially want to go to WrestleMania and the other not seems to be I'd rather see Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman at WrestleMania. I think that would be a better match in regards to what we've been seeing lately. I guess LA Knight and Jacob Fatu, just the rivalry, the feud between those two just isn't there. It's just a title match of you're the number one contender, I'm the champion.
What do you mean, though? LA Knight's had an issue with the bloodline for a while, though.
I mean, Yes, I mean everyone's had an issue with the bloodline. But the story hasn't been as strong as obviously him versus Jacob Fatu versus Braun Strowman. I think this would be better maybe as a triple threat.
I think the LA Knight portion of it. I think at least you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's been more of a build up between LA Knight and Jacob Fatu than Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu. I think the Braun Strowman portion of it hasn't. It's been around for a little bit, but I feel like LA Knight's has been around longer because I feel like LA Knight's been having issues with the bloodline, and Jacob Fatu is part of that bloodline for a good amount of time. So, I get what you're saying, though. Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman, yes, they've been tearing the house down, no doubt about that. I'm not going to argue that because it's true. They've been doing a great job. But, I still think this is a marquee match. I think it's going to be a really good match. Without a title involved, I would pay to see it because I like both combatants. I like LA Knight. I like Jacob Fatu. I don't think we're losing much when it comes to not having Fatu versus Strowman. I think we've seen that enough times for the time being where it's time to just kind of maybe put that aside a little bit. So I'm actually I'm actually pretty excited about LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu.
Staying with kind of Randy Orton and Kevin Owens right now not being on the card. Randy Orton, I have a feeling as of right now, as of this recording, he doesn't have a match, right? We still have 2 SmackDowns and 1 Raw to go before WrestleMania. And I have a feeling they're going to maybe do something. I hope it doesn't end up being the same situation we saw, right? It's kind of like a meme, right? I was thinking we were going to have Randy Orton holding up the Andre the Giant title on the stage at WrestleMania with like a frown face, like, I'm supposed to be on this card, like WrestleMania 39 with Bobby Lashley when he didn't get his match against Bray Wyatt, which was advertised, I think canceled, not really canceled, just kind of, obviously with Bray Wyatt disappearing right at that time, kind of just brushed aside, and then nothing was made for Bobby Lashley. So I don't know what's the plan for Randy Orton, if it's just Andre the Giant Battle Royal or something. But regardless of what it is, it's going to be rushed. It's going to be not a true, story that would be just as good because we only have a week to build it. So it won't be anything like Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton. And I just feel like this card, this WrestleMania could be a very, very solid 7-match, one-night show. But trying to push it to 14 matches, they are struggling, and I understand one match isn't the going to break the back here, but it just makes you have pause in realizing that these are regular competitors, and let's say obviously the main event for night number 1, right? We have the triple threat: Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. I feel like if something was to happen last minute where they can't produce that match, 2 out of 3 of those guys are gone, and Roman Reigns is out on his own, or CM Punk's out on his own, or Seth Rollins is out on his own. So essentially, we don't have that match. It just can't happen. It can't be one-on-one. It would be, a lot of people I think would be like, hey, you owe us a night refund here, because it's just the idea of 2-night WrestleMania. It makes it so that it is so much more important that you have 2 main events caliber matches, that you have enough that it's not just a 1-match show, because it literally can't be a 1-match show because you're paying the same price to go Saturday as you are Sunday. So, if for some reason let
me ask you this. As of recording, do you think Randy Orton will find an opponent for WrestleMania?
I do think they're going to do something. The reason I say that is because he did RKO Nick Aldis on SmackDown.
So wait, is it something like, is he going to get involved in somebody's match, or do you think he actually gets a match?
I think he gets a match. I think it might be something where Randy Orton does a little bit of what John Cena did a couple years ago, where he didn't have the match. He ended up having the Undertaker match, but where maybe he doesn't have a match and they don't give him a match, so he comes out and kind of gets in the ring at WrestleMania and is like, I want an opponent. And maybe to all the rumors are true that it could be Aleister Black, right? We'll see. But I think
what about Ray Phoenix?
He's brand new. I don't necessarily that's kind of random.
Just putting on, I know, at this point it's very late in the game and obviously it's unfortunate, but I would love to see Ray Phoenix and Randy Orton on the card, so why not put them together?
I guess, it could be anybody, really. But that's how we're at. We're a week out, and it could be Randy Orton versus anybody. Either way, it's not going to be T-shirt caliber. It's not going to be Randy Orton versus somebody just as big.
Do you think Aleister Black is coming back at Mania?
I don't, I don't know if it's the night after Mania. I don't know if it's before Mania. I don't know if it's at Mania now. But I mean, just saying that
Oh,
that's a kind of an option.
you know what? That's you just gave me a great idea. I mean, you kind of led with that. I think maybe Randy goes on night one or night two, pissed off because he doesn't have a match, and he's like, you know what? The heck with it. I'm gonna issue an open challenge to anybody in the back, that kind of shtick, and then you have Aleister Black's music hit. That'd be kind of cool. I'd be all right with that. A return of somebody who Triple H has been high on. We all know that. And, obviously, I think he's coming back to WWE at some point. So that would be cool.
I just think overall, right, WrestleMania, it's over 2 nights, so and everything is just so much more important. Now, obviously, small matches that are just kind of filler matches maybe aren't as important. That could be, instead of the women's IC title, it's the women's US title or something like that. That is not as important. But when you have some of these matches like we see with every year with 2-night WrestleMania, you got like 2 or 3 big matches on Saturday, 2 or 3 big matches on Sunday. Like,
wait a second. I don't think there's a men's tag match at Mania for a championship, is there? I don't think at this stage of the game, I don't think the War Raiders.
Well, we just had the tag match right on SmackDown. With the Street Profits defending against DIY. I think we just had the New Day versus with the War Raiders, right, over on Raw.
But that was DQ'd though, so that could be set something.
So
up.
I mean, and here's a major thing, and you cannot forget this: WWE separated the Hall of Fame out of SmackDown this year, and now John Cena is being advertised for that SmackDown to kind of give it a little more oomph the night before WrestleMania. So John Cena's got one more appearance before WrestleMania officially announced is that night before SmackDown Las Vegas, but. SmackDown's 3 hours, right? It's its own ticket. It's a expensive ticket on its own. They're trying for one of those full arena type crowds, the way that it's laid out currently. So I will say, before, obviously things like the Andre the Giant Battle Royal are going to probably be on that SmackDown, but you can't just coast on the idea that people are mostly there for the Hall of Fame, like the Undertaker year or the Paul Heyman year. You got to give them a solid show. And before also, too, those SmackDowns were only 2 hours. So you could fill 2 hours a little bit easier than 3 hours. So that makes it difficult. And I imagine 1 or 2 of those tag title matches, right, is going to be on, obviously the SmackDown version, is going to be on SmackDown. So we can't just say, well, okay, we've got these other titles. You got to save something for that quote unquote WrestleMania SmackDown that they always try to sell you, that big, SmackDown event. So you can't essentially phone it home on that one. The idea is that, people pay for all 3 of these events and, each match is very important. And when you lose a match, I just feel like there's not enough people right now sitting on the shelf. Just raring to go, or they would probably be involved in WrestleMania somehow. But kind of sticking to Kevin Owens and getting away from just obviously the idea of him and his match. He's out, right, of this match against Randy Orton. But one thing I want to kind of talk about quickly regarding him out is that he came out and he made the announcement on SmackDown. Now, for the last couple of months, Kevin Owens has been a heel among heels, as heelish as you can get. And he made this announcement, and obviously as people like us who watch wrestling, right, we've seen this happen before, where people have faked injuries. We saw Mark Henry fake a retirement. We've seen all of that happen. AJ Styles faked a retirement, right, pretty recently to get his match against Cody Rhodes. So with Kevin Owens coming out, and I understand, right, we got to kind of read between the lines, but I can't tell you 100% when he came out and announced that he was injured until probably it was taken off the WrestleMania card and we saw him actually leave the arena. I couldn't tell you 100%, right, that was a work or that was, a shoot versus a work, right? I couldn't tell you 100% because, again, this isn't a good guy saying this. This is a bad guy who was used in his buildup to a lot of his matches, these tactics in general, right? That's good heel work. He's the hottest heel right now in WWE, maybe other than John Cena himself. So a fan yelled out something to him on his way back. They cut it off camera, but people caught it on cell phone footage that when he was on his way backstage, some fan yelled at him like, you're still a piece of shit or, something to that line. And Kevin Owens took exception. And I have to say, I'm not defending the fan because I just don't yell at anyone like that, even in the wrestling ring. There's kids around, things like that. But I'm also thinking that Kevin Owens should also probably have done better in just leaving, right? because he just spent the last how many months, 4 months of being a heel where he could perfectly accept that people yelled at him, you're a piece of shit. And he like soaked it in. That's what he did for the last 4 months as he's literally, doing what he did to Cody Rhodes on Saturday night's main event after the match is over, doing those things where he's putting, Adam Pearce in a package and Nick Aldis in a package and, doing the kind of things that Gunther's currently doing. So I'm not defending the fan, but at the same time, it's just one of those situations like you just spent 4 months being this hot heel where you would literally use a tactic like this if it was in your arsenal. You would fake an injury absolutely if it was going to be part of the storyline. It would fit your character perfectly. And I'm not saying that it's fake this time, or it's real this time. The idea, though, is you can't literally blur the line and then immediately expect people to pick up on it. Immediately have people, because I can tell you what, when he said, I'm not wrestling WrestleMania and Randy Orton's music hit, for some reason, I had a pause. Right? I was like, well, hold on a minute. Right? Meaning that 100% I did not believe the injury to be real at that time. Well, I believe it to be 100% now. I believed it to be 99% then, but I did not have 100%, right? So I just feel like it was just kind of weird for Kevin Owens to take such umbrage and take such offense to that person kind of yelling something that you would yell at a heel. Even if people are yelling, you're faking it or whatever, you should understand. When obviously he goes away for a month or two, then, that's fine. And when he comes back, he can be a whole different character. But literally in the moment, like when your music hits and people still believe you're a heel as you're walking into the ring, because until you walk in the ring, there's people in the crowd that don't know that you're going to announce your neck injury or going to announce that you're not at WrestleMania or going to come out, as real Kevin Steen kind of thing. They don't know that. So, it just was kind of one of those things where he just, if John Cena came out on that SmackDown the night before WrestleMania and did the same thing, right? It's going to take us a hot minute to be like, hold on a minute. Is this a rib? Are we being worked? And you got to just understand that, especially in the wrestling business. Most of the time, these people are professionals. You get yelled at all the time. You're great at ignoring it. I just don't understand why, he took such offense to it. Anything on that, Brandon?
Oh, I thought you were going to the next segment. No, I guess we'll have to cut that. I'm sorry.
You're fine. I just, anything on Kevin Owens and coming out and do you like the way he came out and announced his quote unquote neck injury and that he'll be out of WrestleMania? Did you take any exception to how it was done or anything like that?
Not at all. No, I actually really was. When he walked down the ring, like that whole segment was happening, I was actually 100% sure because there was a lot of
rumors, right, and talk leading into the show.
Yes, and yes, you never could be. I guess you can never be 100% sure, but like it got leaked, and when injuries like that happen, they're like, all right, Kevin Owens is going to come out, and you set it up the way you set it up. I was like, yeah. He's done. And here's the thing. When Randy Orton came out, I knew it wasn't going to get physical. I just knew it. Like I knew I could see that you could see the disappointment in Randy, but I knew it wasn't going to get physical because the injury it's legitimate. You know what I mean? Like it's 100% a real thing. So yeah, and here's the other part too. I agree with you on that part about the fan as well. If I'm Kevin Owens, I just walk to the back and not even acknowledge that fan because, to me, there's no need to at that point. And that's usually it's out of Kevin's character too because everything that I've heard, from industry people, listening to podcasts and just reading about what how Kevin Owens is as a person, and that's never been a question of his character. He's a stand-up guy. Anyone that knows Kevin Owens, I've never heard a real story about Kevin Owens that's a bad story. I hear he's very approachable. He's a good guy. So that to me I was a little surprised by that, to be completely honest.
Somebody brought up a good point that I read this week, which I believe to be true. Anytime that a professional wrestler is in a wrestling ring and they are in character, whatever they say has to be taken with a grain of salt. So, that's just how it is. You're in a wrestling ring, in a wrestling character, talking on a microphone.
But
it's not like we've never seen that storyline before.
with social media being the way it is, and the way our society is these days, that is true. I 100% am with you. Like if they're in that arena, like they're in the they're like where Kevin Owens was, you have to assume he's just being the heel that he is right now. So yes, I agree with you, but at the same time, the way things are, and the way the world is, and everybody's trying to get these video, their phones out and recording everything they can get. Like it kind of brushes that reality line a little bit.
Kevin Owens was very upset that his injury did get leaked, that he could not reveal it to the fans before all of us knew about it. And, it goes back to what we talk about a lot of times with leaks and all this stuff. I mean, it's real. Like, the idea that there is only a handful of people that should have known about his injury. And yes, I do understand that like a handful of people do know because there's travel arrangements, there's hotel bookings, there's, all those kind of people who are involved with WWE, not just Triple H and Nick Khan. There's people who are involved in obviously getting him to SmackDown to make the announcement, getting him back home, and canceling his WrestleMania trip, that whole 9 yards. I do understand, but I do think that whoever is Triple H, Nick Khan, whoever it is, needs to make a real point in the back to whoever is working with talent that if you want to work in the professional wrestling world, if you want to work in the WWE, just like if you want to work in any job, confidentiality is key. Because here's the deal. A lot of these kind of things don't get leaked in other places, right? Before a TV show hits the air, right, there's a lot of times where like shows are in canned for months before they air on television, and the finales are kept under wraps because that's how television works. But whoever is doing these kind of things, so it's not just with Kevin Owens, but it's in general, whether it comes to leaked backstage of who's getting a push or what the WrestleMania card's going to look like, even the pictures that are coming out right now of the WrestleMania stage. It's not me taking that picture. It's not a fan sneaking in. It's somebody who is entrusted by the WWE, even if it's a third-party construction site that is being told, no photography. This is off limits. There is somebody, and there are always going to be people who are doing this, and it's got to be shown, to the utmost that, I understand it's going to happen, but it can't just be, hey, it's going to happen. We're just used to it and accept it.
To that point, I mean, I'm no legal scholar by any means, but why can't anybody that's under the WWE umbrella sign an NDA for these type of things? Where like, if you could have some legal consequences for breaking protocols. I think that should be something. And again, I'm not a legal scholar, so anyone that's a legal scholar that follows the show, you can correct me on that. But I think there has to be, like, I think to your point, Nick Khan, Triple H, Ari, like all of those, like that whole group, they need to lay down the law and say, this cannot go happen going forward. We will get to the bottom of it. We will do a thorough investigation. And if it is found that you are, whoever it is doing it, you are no longer going to be part of WWE. Now,
I mean, a good example would be like okay.
Here's the last point to it, real quick. The last point to that is, man, Dave Meltzer would be shaking in his boots if that happens, because how is he going to get his subscriptions? Because the dirt sheet stuff will not exist in WWE because of stuff like this. If WWE did kind of like the NDA kind of a thing, that's the other side of it too. Like if that happened, for example, if that really did happen, like the dirt sheet world would not be in a good place. They'd have to go focus all their energy on other organizations, because guess what? WWE would say, no thanks, see you later.
I look at like all those photos of the WrestleMania stage coming out, and obviously it's a lot of construction crew and stuff doing it. And obviously when you take a photo, there's somebody on the other side of that photo. So it shouldn't take too long to go, hey. And listen, maybe it's not. Maybe the construction workers, they're not being told these kind of things. But I think that they should, right? Triple H should get in there and say, hey, guys, if you're working with the WWE, it's a little bit different than working for Dunkin' Donuts. Anything that what we're doing here, we're not doing photography. And I imagine it's probably like that, though, for Dunkin' Donuts. I imagine Dunkin' Donuts doesn't want a construction worker or somebody who's working on a crew taking pictures of a building that's going up that's going to be a future Dunkin' Donuts. A lot of times there's buildings I see around town. I have no idea what they're going to be. Somebody knows what they're going to be, and somebody could take a picture and go, this is going to be this bank, this is going to be a new Walmart, whatever. But, those people know not to, if it's not their information to share, they are known to not share that information. I have a job where I cannot share information about certain things. I know not to do it, so I don't. So I just don't understand.
Same here. I'm with you on that, 100%.
Yes.